Here's a completed drone that I restored from one that was found in the woods. It was a big mess. There was dirt in everything. There were bug eggs. There were bug carcasses throughout everything. There was a GoPro camera on it that you don't see in this video because I'm using it to record this video. This is a hero session. It wasn't working, so I figured out how to get it apart without wrecking it, and I jump started the battery with a power supply. I did take my time. It wasn't really a jump start, but it wasn't a normal charge, and it seems to be charging and discharging at a normal rate. I can get an hour and a half out of the battery, and the inside of the GoPro was fine because of course GoPros are sealed up and they work well. This drone was not sealed. It was terrible. Every piece of metal was rusted. The motors were seized. The magnets on the motors were rusted. The whole thing was locked up. The stator, they were all rusted. The bearings were rusted. So I cleaned off all the rust and I replaced the bearings. It's amazing what you can find on Amazon with little knowledge. You just have to measure the bearings and do a search, and hopefully you can come up with a decent set of bearings that's not going to cost you forever. So what was interesting about this is the GoPro had a working micro SD card. So I checked the video on it. It was dated 2017. Right now it's 2025. It was May 2017. When I connected to the original flight controller, that was also the same date. I was kind of floored that it was that long, sitting at least that long in the woods. Well, maybe not at least, but probably close to that. Yeah, actually it was that date because the GoPro camera was recording, and it recorded the crash, and it sat in the tree for a long time recording before it stopped recording. So again, as I took it apart and I took photos of it, it was still hard to tell how it went together because of all the crud and stuff that was in it. The screws were rusty, the screws for the camera were rusty. The hardest part to fix were the pins on the transmitter and the camera. They're micro, they're JST, SH I believe, and they're really, really tiny. And I had to try to get in next to each pin and file or sand the rust off. Just the spray wasn't doing it. So the flight controller I wanted to use the original one, and I did a lot of work on it. That was an F3. It was an Omnibot F3. I found out what it was, and I put the firmware, updated the firmware on it, only to find out that because I cut the original wires short, it was hard to desolder and pull them out of the original circuit board because the wires were as fat as they could possibly fit inside the holes on the flight controller. So I had to use a lot of heat to get those wires to release. It melted the insulation. I ended up with a bunch of strands sticking out all over the place. And then due to my reward for my efforts, it was an extraordinary effort cleaning the board up. But I ended up desoldering and losing a component that was on the flight controller. So I don't know what it did. It still connects a Betaflight, but I figured I had a spare. I'll just use it. So I put in an Omnibus F7 V2 flight controller, a lot more familiar with it. Now this thing came with a Spectrum transmitter. A Spectrum receiver. It was flown with a Spectrum transmitter, obviously, but I could not get that receiver to do anything. It was in its own sealed little plastic case, and it looked good. I couldn't get it to connect to this Omnibus. I tried different protocols, serial ports, no serial port, changed the type of ports. I couldn't figure it out. I went online, tried to find some old help for it, and I did find some help, but it didn't help. So I reconnected it to the old flight controller, and I couldn't get any response from that receiver into the flight controller. So I had to put on a different receiver. Unfortunately, I don't fly Spectrum. I fly FreeSky, so it's a FreeSky. FreeSky, yeah. Yeah, see it jumping around? It's a FreeSky receiver, and my friend only has Spectrum, and I'm going to give this to him. My friend is Bill, and I guess that's pretty much it, except it was a real pain trying to rebuild the stack because it was hard to tell what was where and in what order, and I was making some minor changes to it. And I guess the height of the video transmitter had to be just right, so I had clearance in the back and it wasn't too low and hitting the boards inside, and it had some room for cooling. So this is it. Hope you liked my video. This is a drone from 2017 and it flies fine.